right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining today. Before we hand it off to Securely, I'm going to take maybe 3 minutes of your time to walk through a brief introduction of who we are, and then I'm going to pass it on to our Securely experts with us today to talk about distance learning and maybe some tools and tricks to help you deal with that this school season. So before we do that, here's a little information about Pine Cove. So we've been in business since 1993, servicing the Montana, Wyoming, pretty much the whole Rocky Mountain region you can see from that map. We do work with some customers outside of this area, but this is kind of our hub we work out of. As you can see, we have employees stationed throughout the region. We support 20,000 end users daily. So this webinar in particular is, focused on school districts, which is kind of our bread and butter. We were actually founded by educators. Our CEO is an educator himself, and started the business as an IT director in Wyoming, was one of the first IT directors in the state for a school district. And so yeah, education is near and dear to our hearts. We're excited to talk about Securely today and talk school district safety and things like that. So we partnered with Securely just, I think, 2 years ago in 2018. And we offer their suite of solutions, which they'll talk about here in a second. But it was a good fit for us because we're already working with school districts and we want to help the leaders of school districts solve those complex problems. And so partnering with Securely was a no-brainer. Next slide. So we kind of specialize in complex products and complex environments. So we talk about this process. We believe that success achieved in IT is much more than just deploying a specific service or product. So this process is one that we employ to help the clients we work with be successful with their IT. And it starts with analyzing your current environment to make sure that you have all the solutions in place that need to support any additional products or services that we might deploy. We design the solution for you, personalized for you, to make sure it's going to work to achieve your goals and your vision for your organization. Then we work with you to deploy that solution. Obviously, we'll continue to support that solution, and then we offer financing options to help sustain that solution. We want to avoid technology redundancy, so we want to make sure we work with you on that. And so that's what we specialize in, complex problems. We're excited to dive into a little bit more specific problems that school districts face in today's webinar. And to do that, I'm going to introduce and hand it off to our Securely team. Joined today by Adam and Mike, who work for Securely and are going to walk you through the platform, and I'm going to hand it off to them. Mike, you wanted the control, right? You're the one showing the PowerPoint.
If you'll give it to Adam.
Adam, okay, sorry about that.
No
All right, Adam, I just made you presenter, so you can share your screen, and you won't have to look at my face anymore, and I'll let you enjoy the content of today's webinar.
All right, thank you. This is Mike from Securely, and I'm excited to be able to work with Jace and be able to present with alongside of Adam from Securely today. What we're going to focus on is just a high-level overview of what we're doing at Securely to keep students safe and on task. And a lot of this is going to be focused around distance learning and best practices there, because obviously we know that most of the schools around the country are either doing full distance learning or some type of mixed environment where kids are in school a few days a week. So we just want to talk about what we've seen, what we've done as a company over the last few years, and how we've been able to help schools, particularly since the start of COVID last March. So we'll look at our offsite filtering first, which again, that's what Securely started as. We'll go in next into student safety and parental engagement, which is extremely important right now, especially with kids remote in a lot of schools. And then Adam's going to take you through virtual classrooms and device management. So I'll introduce myself and then let Adam do the same. So again, Mike Jolley, I'm the Director of K-12 Safety Operations here at Securely. I'm really not what I would call a tech person. I am a former principal. I was an administrator for about a decade here in North Carolina, where I am now, right outside of Charlotte. And in that time as an administrator of a pretty large high school, faced some things, had a young man take his life right before the prom, We had a student get us on national news by threatening to kill everyone. He did bring weapons on campus. He was actively seeking affiliation with ISIS. And then the other things that principals deal with, the bullying, cyberbullying, harassment. And so because of those things and what I experienced, my mission as working as Securely's Director of Student Safety is to prevent those things, prevent parents, teachers, students, staff, anyone related to a school in any way, shape, or form from experiencing these. So I really want to help schools fight bullying, self-harm, and violence. And then Adam?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here. My name's Adam. I've, for the past 5-6 years, I've been actually working with a completely different company. They specialized in K-12 technology, though, mobile device management, classroom control, but they looked at everything from a device standpoint. A little over a year and a half ago, my company was invited to be acquired. It was merger and acquisition by Securely, because what we were able to do together was far more than any of us could do independently. We were able to not only bring a great culture of safety and filtering and you know, bringing parents in and things like that, but also be able to control devices. And I gotta say, it was fantastic to be able to have that year build up to the March that we had, you know, in 2020. Everything has just totally gone in a completely different direction than I think any one of us could have imagined. And because of that year that Securely and TechPilot had to really build a good base and a great understanding and a great working relationship and get everybody merged into Securely, we're now able to be one united front. So very excited to be here. Mike says he's not techie. He does all right, but I'm like a straight up nerd. So when my camera comes on, you guys are going to be seeing, you know, Marvel stuff in the background and things like that. So hit me up offline if you guys ever want to chat about the Marvel universe or anything.
Great, thank you, Adam. All right, so who is Securely? I know some of you on the call are familiar with us. Some of you may not be, so just a very quick high-level overview. We are a student safety-focused solution. We only serve K-12, and that's all we ever want to do. Founded in San Jose, California by two internet security veterans about 7 years ago. And we began as the world's first 100% cloud-based content filter, but have now moved into student safety via monitoring email, Google Docs, Drive, having an anonymous tip line, having specialists watch for alerts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As Adam said, classroom and device management, parental controls. We were the industry leader. We actually patented parental controls as part of a web filter. And then visitor management and that have instant identity checks using AI. So first we'll take a look at offsite filtering. You know, we do have, as we said, this was our flagship product. This is what brought us into the market, and it solved a lot of issues for schools, and particularly important as schools have now gone fully remote and have a desire to filter those devices offsite. So when you look at our filter, you know, you're going to be able to keep, one, be SEPA compliant. And, you know, that's very important, is we know compliance. As someone who's worked in a school, I get the importance of that, and Securely allows you to do that through the signature cloud-based web filter. So you'll get full visibility into online activity. You'll be able to download or email reports, and you'll get notifications of flagged content from basically the most sophisticated AI in student safety. You know, we've been using this AI and fine-tuning it as a means of detecting things like bullying, self-harm, and violence now for almost 5 years. And that's something that no one else in the filtering space had been doing, and have now, you know, shifted. So while we are a relatively new face, when you look at the market, but the technology that is being used now by most everyone in the space was actually pioneered by us, and we're continuing to improve that. But the filter works any device, anywhere, as simple as that. So whatever you're using in school, whatever you're using at home, we're going to be able to jump in and filter that and make sure your kids are safe and you're SEPA compliant. So again, when you're looking at shifting to sending devices home, some benefits we have as far as our cloud-based solution, the multi-tenant architecture, out-of-the-box decryption. And what schools really love is that installation in less than 30 minutes. And again, along with this is our parent integration that shares responsibility. You know, everybody thinks, you know, school should do everything. And we know that's not true. And deep down, parents and community also know that's not true, but we should work together. And so, you know, one of the things that Securely brings to the table is the ability to share that responsibility out. All right, so moving specifically into what we are really all about. Obviously, we have a solid, amazing filter, but through that filter, we're able to do some things with student safety and engagement. So let's just take a look at a couple things here. We know most teens have been a victim of cyberbullying. This is some data from the Pew Research Center from 2 years back. And again, every couple of years when you look at this, sadly, you see this trend continue to move outward. So you'll see the different types of bullying kids endure. And, you know, cyberbullying is a little bit different. You know, when I was going to school in the 80s, if someone was giving me a hard time, I could walk home a different way. I could sit in a different part of the cafeteria, avoid them on the weekends. You know, you could dodge it a little bit, but now, you know, through social media, through email, text, whatever, kids can be absolutely relentless. And it just makes it, you know, all that worse. And so when you're looking at all these things, the spreading rumors, sending explicit images, negative messaging, physical threats, you know, all these things. If you'll go to the next slide, Adam, we know these are leading to things that you'll see here in the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Now, the 2019 data is not ready yet. They administer this survey. Most of you that work in education, I'm sure, have heard of this. It's kind of the gold standard in student surveys. We're looking at a variety of things. So the most recent data we have is from 2017. And when you look here, this is surveying 9th through 12th grade students over the last 12 months. Have you? And look at these answers. 17% seriously considered suicide. 13% made a plan, 7% actually attempted, and 2.5% needed medical attention. Again, that's a national survey. And this is indicative of why that suicide, according to the Centers for Disease Control, is the second leading cause of death in middle and high school age students. So we see the bullying, we know it's more prevalent, we know it's easier to do because of keyboard courage. We know that because of the bullying harassment, we are seeing an increase in suicide, we're seeing an increase in self-harm, and frankly, we're seeing an increase in school violence, as over 75% of all school shooters were victims of bullying. All right, and then now let's add COVID into the mix. Let's take kids who are already seeing an increase in screen time, we're already seeing an increase in bullying and suicide, and now let's isolate those kids. Let's stress them out because of all the things that are going on in our country and in the world right now. You've got COVID, you've got political unrest, social unrest, lots of different things going on. So it is, man, it's a hard time to be an adult, much less be an impressionable kid. So you've got kids who school provides some of the most normalcy in their life. School may be the safest place in their life. School is an escape for a lot of kids. Now, I firmly get, as a former teacher and principal, there are a lot of kids who don't like school, and they'll tell you that. But deep down, you know, I knew personally lots of kids where school was the only place in which they were going to have an adult acknowledge their existence. As sad as that is, it's true. School is where they see their friends. They can socialize on the bus, in the cafeteria, on the playground. It's just endless, right? And now that has been taken away. So kids don't have their sports, kids don't have activities, clubs, friends. They are sitting at home, they're stressed, their parents are stressed, they're trying to navigate remote learning. So I say all that to say we are on the verge of a mental health crisis. Those aren't my words, those are the words of about every major, when you look at mental health and clinical publications, they're all saying the same thing, that we've already got these high rates prior to COVID, and now we're already starting to see those. One example is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. In July, saw about 106% increase in reports. Again, because we know adults are idle, kids are idle, everybody's online, and again, that's causing some issues. So next one, Adam. So what can we do about this? How can Securely help schools help kids who are going through a crisis? So one of those is Auditor. Auditor is our solution. And again, you'll see there it uses AI. So essentially we have sentiment analysis that's looking at every email, every Google Doc, comments on docs. It's looking in Drive for nude images. It's doing all that in real time, and we're able to take alerts and shoot those alerts out, as you see here, right to the people who need it most. And who is that? Well, that's up to your district. It can go out to every single school site, and these alerts can go to multiple people at the school site. So if I'm a student and I'm email, I can't take this anymore, I'm going to end it all. That is an actual true email that was flagged by Securely in 2016, and one of the first situations in which we intervened in helping save a life, right? And you know what, that statement, I'll say it again, I can't take this anymore, I'm going to end it all. No keyword scanner on the market is going to pick that up because it doesn't say murder, kill, suicide. That's the beauty of our sentiment analysis, is that it picks up on things that traditional scanners would miss, and it actually allows us to weed out more of the false positives. So again, very powerful AI. It's looking at every email sent and received, looking at what they're doing on Docs and looking in Drive for those images, and it's giving that heads up to those who need it and can be proactive. We also have some confidence scores and delegated administration. As I mentioned, as the IT department, if this isn't your wheelhouse, we know everybody who works in a school system cares about kids, right? But we all have different backgrounds, and principals, counselors have more specific training in some instances than other personnel in the district. So we allow you to send these alerts out, and that way all of these aren't dealt with at the technology level. I remember in my former district, one of the solutions we used maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I remember talking to the technology department and around their frustration of having to deal with all these for 40,000 kids. So now, again, these alerts go straight out to the principals or counselors, resource officers, deans, whoever needs them. And you can set the sensitivity through a confidence score between 1 and 5 that allows you to determine how sensitive you want our AI flagging to be. And then we have 24. 24 is probably my favorite tool that Securely offers, because we are sending these alerts out, and kids don't shut off anxiety. Kids don't shut off, fear, stress, or depression at 3:30 when they go home. We know that kids at all hours of the day are thinking about, harming themselves or going through issues or fighting things. So our 24-hour monitoring has a team of special analysts who have backgrounds like psychology, they're former school counselors, they're former school social workers, highly trained people with backgrounds who know when kids are crying out for help. Well, they're looking at all these alerts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's say a kid writes a suicide note to a teacher in a Google Doc. It's happened more than any of us would like to care to really think about. But that happens at 3 in the morning. There's going to be an alert sitting in the principal's inbox. Well, that principal is going to be asleep, right? No one is expected to be a 24-hour employee in a school district. That's why Securely's 24 team is there, because we do have that coverage 24 hours a day. And if we see something that is emergent, right? In other words, the data we have between the searches and the sites visited and the Google activity and the Gmails, we know that based on that data, a kid may hurt themselves or others in the next 24 hours. And when we have that, we're going to call. Some districts want us to call a designee at the school. Some want us to call a designee at the central office. Some want us to call law enforcement immediately. It is totally customizable. And this is probably the best feedback we have from hundreds of districts across the country, some of them with close to 100,000 students. And again, some with 500 students. This works at all variety and all sizes of districts. But the feedback is that, this saved a life. This caught something in the middle of the night. We're able to get alerted to it. So this is a powerful tool. It allows employees to be employees and focus on kids, to know that Securely's got your back when it comes to student safety and those emergent issues. And then the last thing I want to talk about is parental integration, right? We've talked about principals getting alerts and counselors getting alerts and monitoring things. Well, there's also some major challenges for parents during COVID. Like me, right now I'm working full-time from home instead of my office. So is my wife. The person that would normally have watched our children is in a high-risk category and can't come in. I have multiple children doing a variety of work. I've got a 2nd grader and a 5th grader. And you know what, honestly, there are some things that, that are a challenge to parents on all levels. So parents don't have specific subject knowledge. I was a history major. So you know what, if she wants to talk about the rise of nationalism between Serbia and Croatia, between World War I and World War II, I've got it. But you know what, if she needs help with trig, I'm going to struggle. So parents all across the country are really trying to navigate, how do I help my kid? How do I keep a job, but how do they maintain learning, and how do they stay safe? So what Securely has, again, with our patented industry first parent app, solves these problems. It's been solving these problems for years, but again, these problems are highlighted by COVID. So Adam, if you'll go to the next one, here you'll see the app. So this is a free app. This is total free for parents. If the district is using Securely as the web filter, this is a free service for parents. They go into that app and they can see 30 days of their kids' activity. So they're going to see every site visited, every search, every video watched. There's going to be a nice link to it. It'll show them if there was blocked activity. So again, it's a great conversation piece for parents instead of just a shot in the dark of, hey, what'd you learn today? You know, I will tell you this, I'm a self-proclaimed curriculum nerd. I love teaching and learning. It's why I became a principal. And when my daughters were physically in school and I would pick them up, I would say, what'd you girls learn today? And they would look me dead in the eye and say, nothing, Dad. And I know that's not true, but I know that's a common theme between kids and parents. And so this app gives parents the tools to say, hey, I saw you searching for FDR and New Deal today. Tell me what you learned. Or, hey, you know what? I see you trying to go to Facebook during math class. No wonder you got a C. Come on. So again, it gives parents a lot of things. It's not just a gotcha. It's about connecting and reinforcing and teaching your kids all things parents should do and want to do anyway. Flagged activities is the second section. So flagged, again, is going to look for things that are indicative of bullying, self-harm, or violence. An example of a parent flag from the other week was a kid actually searched, will I go to hell if I kill myself? You know, that's a pretty powerful search, and it's something that parents should be aware of. So again, parents can be notified in real time via push notification through this app. Then the rules are a really neat feature. It allows parents to manage screen time by blocking and allowing sites. So let's say the district allows gaming sites, you know, when the device is at home, and a parent is losing that battle with their kid of staying on task during instructional time. The parent can go in and block a certain game, or they can block streaming media. So again, it gives parents a little bit of say in what can be accessed on that school device. And I want to be very clear, parents can't block anything when the device is with you at school, and parents can only block or allow what you give them access. So while they do have control, you as a school system have control over everything the parents can do. So you have some wiggle room in how much or how little control you give them. And the last two things, when it comes to screen time, you'll see there you can pause the internet with one click, and you can also set bedtime. So we have a feature for offline schedules, meaning if I want to make that school device a paperweight between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m., I go in and set an offline schedule for bedtime, and the device will not connect to the internet. I could also set a lunchtime. I can set an outdoor playtime, whatever you want. So this is a parent's best friend when it comes down to, okay, I've been working all day. My spouse has been working all day. Our kids have been online learning, we hope. What does that learning consist of? What have they been doing? Is it alarming? Is it safe? Are they trying to waste time? This is the app that answers all of those issues. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn this over to Adam. But again, to recap, Securely has an amazing cloud-based web filter that'll work on any device anywhere. It's going to keep you SEPA compliant. It's going to be easy to get sent out on the devices, and it's going to come with some safety solutions that are going to help you find things that are indicative of bullying, self-harm, and violence. And then we're going to allow parents to have this app that's going to let them go through and see what their kids are doing and get some alerts and manage screen time. So with that, Adam, I'm 1 minute over, so I'll turn to you now. Thank you.
I didn't even know we had a time. That's great, Mike. And to piggyback on what Mike said about the parent app, as a parent that uses it, it's fantastic. And I'm a huge nerd / geek, tech whatever you want to call it. My wife is not. Lovely lady, but not at all. And she can navigate the app just fine and be able to change things and know what's going on and be able to understand what Bryson or Scar, one of my kids is looking up. So it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that, Mike. So I want to talk about Classroom. Classroom, Chrome tools, Securely Classroom. You might have heard it called by a bunch of different names. But some big key points here. 34% increase in new accounts of Classroom, 52% increase of teacher activity. classes went longer. Chat and announce feature became the #1 used features. This is, classroom in 2020. And I'm sure if we were in a room, you guys would have very puzzled looks on your faces. Like, why is he starting with this? And I probably should have started in a different spot, but I wanted to point this out first because this is a huge metric in looking at what teachers are needing right now. So since March, since the time that we've all been going remote, different states have been doing this, we have seen this huge influx of interest in being able to control devices remotely. And it's because we don't just want to send home a book and say, hey, read this and best of luck to you. Hey, I'm gonna send home my 6th grade math book home with my 6th grader and say, all right, by the end of the school year, the next 6 months, you need to be able to be at page 300. I tell you what page he's going to be on. He's going to be on the page after the page he was on in March, and that's it. So we had this big issue of how are we going to work with schools that are remote. We already had this great system set up when we're talking about working together in a class. And you're gonna see these words a lot, not just with us, but probably in the news, in all sorts of education things. We have these 2 models, synchronous learning, and our brains work really well with synchronous learning. This is, exactly what we've been used to the entire span of curriculum up until this point. We have a class, we have teachers, or an instructor, we have students that are learning from that person, and we all are working together at about the same pace on about the same stuff. Well, now we have to deal with synchronous learning when we're not all sitting together. So we had to make sure that Classroom could handle that. Can it work offline? Can it work, in somebody's rural Georgia where I live? Can it work over somebody's 3 meg DSL line? Can it work over HughesNet? Believe it or not, these are things that we had to work on. We've got satellite internet in some of these remote places. Can everything still work? And the answer is yes, it can. But we've had to look at our learning models. We've had to look at synchronous versus asynchronous, because this is really the 2 paths that schools are taking right now. We see oftentimes that schools will have a class period where everybody's working on something together, or we have times where a teacher assigns something and they said, hey, we're gonna do this and this. I want you to go over these things. Here's the materials that you need. And then you can sign in to your class period between this time and this time, and you'll be able to reach out to me. And so going back, we wondered, well, why did chat and announce become such a huge thing? We would still think that you'd want to push out content. We would think that that's what's, happening the most. But in reality, it turned into getting resources to students is easy. You can email stuff, you can message stuff, you can put it on YouTube. We've seen teachers being hugely resourceful. We've also seen a lot of schools that have switched into Zoom meetings and GoToMeeting, Ring Central, all these different Hangouts, things like that. But we still found that communication is the biggest thing missing. And in fact, if you guys think about a lot of our remote environments now, communication has been the challenge, I would say, for everybody. I don't live where Mike lives, but I report back to the office in Charlotte. I'm about 4 hours away by car, but I would plan on going to Charlotte every other month, every 3rd month to check in with my boss so that we can have face-to-face, so that we can communicate and get on the same page. And that just doesn't happen anymore. So if I'm an adult and I'm struggling with being able to keep up lines of communication and I work remotely all the time, imagine how tough it is for a student and teacher, for a student to be learning a new process and go over new things. So keep these differences and these needs for the different learning styles in mind as we're going through this. So I was told that a lot of you guys would have some understanding of what Securely Classroom was. And so I don't want to revisit everything, but I do want to give you guys a quick overview just in case. So there are a few key areas. One of them is you want to be able to guide. And actually, I'm going to move to this slide instead. Pre-COVID, in the before time, whatever you guys want to call it, we were looking at how to monitor a student, because a teacher would get up from their desk, they would move around the classroom, and there was always at least one kid that was trying to get away with something, and they would go and check on, race scores or football or whatever they were into. And the teacher would turn around and say, hey, Tommy, what were you getting into? Tommy hit Alt F4 super quick, and he had it like on speed dial. And you know what? The teacher couldn't see it. It was gone by the time they turned around. Well, with our software, teachers wanted to be able to monitor what was going on. They wanted to be able to say, Tommy, what were you doing? I know I can just go back to my computer and look, but why don't you just tell me? And so it came into this self-policing thing, and it was really eyes in the back of the teacher's head or an assistant in the classroom to kind of watch over everything. Also, they use the guiding a lot. If you're pushing out a URL that is quite literally this long when it's in 8-point font, there's no way a third grader is going to type that right the first time. There's probably no way you or I are going to type that right the first time either. So what this allowed was a teacher to be able to hit Control-C, put it in their web library, Control-V, paste it in there, and be able to send it out to the entire class with about 2 clicks. They could even open it on the student's Chromebook at that point in time, and it would launch that website. We also saw a good bit of focusing. Focusing would be where if the student had 10 web pages open, but we wanted to focus them to Quizlet.com for a quiz, we could do that and close everything else and even prevent other pages from opening. And then the last thing that was used was communication. This was just a little bonus thing that was tossed in. We wanted to make sure that students that were maybe a little anxious in front of their classmates, or students that maybe had been bullied, teased, had a stutter, all sorts of different things, could reach out to their teacher. Also, sometimes we saw teachers using this in very unique ways. Like we had a student that had diabetes, and the teacher, we found out, the student would use the communication button, the chat feature, to tell the teacher, hey, can I go out and check my blood sugar real quick? So we saw teachers using this in ingenious ways. All of a sudden, March hits, and everybody's trying to figure out, okay, is COVID a big deal? Is it not a big deal? Do we stay open? Do we close? What's better? What's worse? People die all the time, all these different things that we're still seeing in the news today. And I'm not here to say one way is right, the other way is wrong. What's right for me and you, states are different, locations are different. Where I am in North Georgia, very small population. We've got like a town of 5,000. There are schools in Atlanta, Georgia that are far bigger than that. So while my kids are able to go back to school safely doing some hybrid schedule, students in Atlanta probably can't. So all of a sudden we saw teachers all across the country that said, hey, we've got this tool. What can we do? What if we swap this around, and instead of using this to monitor what's going on, we actually use this to communicate with our students, to be able to send out messages to them, to be able to ask for help, especially when we're still understanding the legalities of, can we actually have a video conferencing software on a student's device that's at home, possibly in a bedroom? These are all complicated situations, things that lawyers need to be able to figure out, that teachers just, they just want to teach. So we saw teachers instantly come to our software and be able to say, hey, we can use this for communication. We can use this for guidance still. We can use this for monitoring and focusing. But we saw a huge change in priority with the teachers. So what did we do? Well, we decided to make sure that we adjusted and fit the need that was there. So we always had the ability to communicate directly with the class, to raise the hand, to make announcements, to even start two-way chats. But a couple of things that we needed to do was make some slight adjustments here. We have our two-way chats, which is great, but it would be really nice if a student could make some of those chat requests instead of just a teacher. So what we had then was this rapid development into things like a notification for the teacher. Often we have teachers that are taking care of their own kids at home and teaching. So now we had a little doorbell sound when a chat came in. So if a teacher wasn't glued to their screen all the time, they had this doorbell sound. They had the ability to open a chat for a student. They had the ability for students to open a chat with a teacher. We had larger images with faster updating. Before it was about a 6-second update, but now we were able to figure out how we could actually do this more dynamically. So the student that has blazing fast EPB gig up, gig down internet, they're flying, we get faster alerts than that student that has a little bit slower HughesNet. So all these different things came with a great ability for teachers to be able to figure out what's going on with their students and be able to still have great interactions with them. We're also able to still do our things like push open the websites, create the site collections. This was a big thing. We wanted to make sure that teachers didn't have to push out individual websites, but that they could actually streamline the process and say, oh, I need to push out 5 websites for today. So they could send that out very quickly. So all these different things led to students being focused, students being on task, teachers being able to have a little bit more control, teachers being able to block YouTube during their class section or class session, but still allow YouTube through the filter. So this means that you could often allow safe searching YouTube through the filter, but teachers could focus students to 1 or 2 videos on YouTube. So being able to use these different resources that they had in a completely different way for this asynchronous session. We also still had the ability to monitor. Now, this granted dropped a lot in its usage. And we saw the drop primarily because a lot of schools went from the synchronous learning to the asynchronous learning. So remember back the differences there, the synchronous, everybody's working together. So monitoring is very important to ensure that students are staying on task. But in an asynchronous environment, monitoring is not as important. We still want to be able to see what a student's doing, have some accountability to that teacher if they had a particular class time, which teachers could review in class browsing history. So anytime a student went somewhere during class session, the teacher would be able to see it, but the teacher wouldn't be able to see all of the student's history. So just lots of little things that we had to tweak. Nothing that required a major overhaul, but just little things like making it easier for the teacher to communicate to the student, making it easier for a teacher to switch from a synchronous session, which is often done, like in my school, Mondays and Wednesdays, to an asynchronous session on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this is where the rapid development cycle that the Securely side from device console, which is where you manage Chromebooks and iPads and Macs and things like that. This is where that change really took place. And we're able to really make it so that teachers were able to get the information that they needed to be able to conduct class sessions appropriately. Now this stemmed into something even bigger because we're still listening to teachers. We've actually invited them into what's called the Securely Lounge. And this was not on the topic to talk about today, but the Securely Lounge allowed us to communicate with tens of thousands of teachers in practically real time and be able to make sure that what we were building, what we were planning on building as well, also fit their needs of what they had. And that's the Securely Classroom and the Safety Suite in a quick nutshell. Mike and I are available to go over any questions that you might have and just field them as they come.
Thanks, Adam and Mike. Great content here. We have had some questions come in, so I'll field those to you. You guys can figure out who's the best answer. But if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to put them in now. So I think you talked about this a little bit, but the first question was, if a district applies rules for school devices, can parents change those policies? How much leeway do they have on that?
Yeah, so absolute great question. You have full leeway. So essentially what you do as a district is you pull up the categories that Securely offers, pornography, drugs, gambling. Obviously those are going to be blocked and stay blocked, but social media, streaming media, gaming, webmail, chat, you have the ability to then go in and allow parents to category by category which sites they can allow, or which categories they can allow or block, and then you can give them the ability to block individual sites or allow. So again, you have full customization over what the parents can allow or block. So in other words, if you don't want them over blocking anything that you don't want them blocking, you can set it up that way.
Great, okay. Next question was, so seems like Chromebooks is a big topic in the world of education right now. Does Securely work with OS X, Windows, or iPads?
Yes. So securely working is a little bit. This is one of those answers where it's yes and no at the same time. So it depends on what things you're wanting to do. We can filter absolutely everything out there. There's not an issue with that. We provide MDM services, and it's a full recognized MDM by Apple. It's actually on their education website for Mac OS and iOS. So we do have great stuff there. We do not have an MDM at this time for Windows. And then on Chromebooks, we don't want to duplicate everything that's being done in the Google Admin Console, but what we have is this great classroom feature set. And during this time of COVID, we actually extended that to any Chrome browser. So previously, we could only view the screens and control what was going on in a Chromebook. But what we've done is actually allowed schools to opt in where we can make a couple of changes on the back end, and then any Chrome browser that is not mobile. So this will not work on a Windows Phone Chrome browser. It has to actually load Chrome extensions, but you can actually view that Chrome browser session and guide and control that Chrome browser session. So great things for those schools that just, they didn't have one-to-one, or they weren't able to send devices home in time. If you're working on mom or dad's computer, whatever it happens to be, Mac OS or PC, you can still do that same control and guidance in a Chrome session.
All right, and then this next question I think came right before you answered it, but does Securely have an option for teachers to monitor a student's screen?
Yes, absolutely.
Easy one right there. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to put them in right now. A few admin items. So like I said at the beginning of this webinar, the recording will be emailed out 2 hours after we finish here today. And so feel free to review that or share that. And then as a thank you for attending the webinar, we are going to be sending out $10 Amazon gift cards. So that should be in the mail. We'll try to get it done today or tomorrow, but probably middle of next week at the latest. So keep your eye open for that as well. And obviously we hope to have you on our next webinar. I think we're taking about a month break, but we'll be back in October for another webinar on another topic. So keep your eyes on your email for that as well. Seeing no more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Just thank you again, Adam and Mike. Your insight is very valuable. We appreciate your time today, and we hope that everyone attending found it useful. And we'll touch base here again, hopefully soon.